One of the most frequent requests we get on this channel is for us to do a video of someone that has a smaller retirement. So today, I want to tell you about a person I met a couple of months ago. Let's call him Trevor. Trevor is 65 years old, and for 18 years he owned a small travel agency. Not a big one. 4 staff, a shop front, a client book he'd built one family holiday at a time. And then, in 2020, with the global pandemic, the world stopped flying. He lost the business. He very nearly lost everything behind it. And in the middle of that, he lost his wife to COVID. Trevor started again at 59 years old, and over the last 6 years, working harder than he did in his 40s, he has rebuilt the business and saved approximately 2 million rand.
And he has one question: can I stop now? I need 30,000 rand a month. Have I done enough?
So we're going to explore his options. Not with encouragement, not with a product, with honest numbers, and tell you upfront that the first answer is going to be a hard one.
But it's not the last answer. And the distance between those two things is the whole point of this video. So, can you retire with 2 million rand in South Africa? As you'll see, the answer is not all straightforward.
Before we go any further, for those of you new to the channel, I'm Hardi Swart, certified financial planner and founder of Family Wealth Custodians. Today, I'm joined by fellow senior financial planner Cam Sondlo. Please note that today's discussion is general education, not personal financial advice. Your health, your household, and your obligations all change the answer. So please speak to an accredited planner before making any big financial decisions.
So, let's put Trevor's actual position on the table. He's 65, he's on his own. His wife unfortunately passed in 2020, so there's no second income and no second pension coming. He has an adult daughter who's financially independent and lives in the UK. He owns a small townhouse that's fully paid off.
And he has 2 million rand sitting in 3 places. He has a retirement annuity of approximately 1.6 million rand, a fixed deposit sitting with the bank of about 200,000 rand, and an investment plan invested into growth assets also of about 200,000 rand, which equals a total amount of about 2 million rand. Here's the thing. 80% of Trevor's money is locked inside a retirement annuity. That's a very tax-efficient place to have saved, but it comes with rules. He can't simply take it. At retirement, he can draw up to 1/3 as cash, and the rest has to buy him an income for life. The 400,000 outside it, the fixed deposit and the investment plan, that's the money he can actually reach. That is his flexibility, and it matters far more than the size suggests.
Now Trevor's tired. After 24 years of 6-day weeks, he's not chasing a beach in Hermanus. He wants the hours down, the pressure off, and more time to visit his daughter.
When we first met, he mentioned that he needed about 30,000 rand per month to maintain his current lifestyle. That's 360,000 rand a year against 2 million rand of capital. Hold those two numbers.
Although, with no bond, no rent, and one person in the house, I'd want to test that 30,000 rand, because that number usually comes from the life you were living, not the life you're about to live.
Trevor wants 30,000 rand a month. That's 360,000 rand a year from 2 million rand of capital.
That's an 18% drawdown on his capital, which is very high, an unsustainable number.
And here's what stops most people. South African law caps a living annuity drawdown at 17.5%. So Trevor's number isn't just aggressive, it's above what the regulator actually permits. He can't do it, even if he wants to.
And that cap isn't bureaucracy. It's there because above it, the money simply doesn't last long enough to be called a retirement.
So what does last? For someone retiring at 65 who needs this money for 25 or 30 years, we're generally looking at a long-term sustainable drawdown on their capital of around 4 to maybe 5%. On 2 million rand, 5% is 100,000 rand a year, 8,300 rand a month. 4% is 6,667 rand a month.
Now that's a long way from 30,000.
And that's where we hold the line. Every number we're about to give you assumes a 9% net return, but this is only an assumption since nobody knows what the future holds, and past performance is no indication of any future returns. That's our working assumption throughout this video.
And Hardi, that's exactly where someone who's watching this video is going to stop us. If the portfolio earns 9%, why on earth can he only draw 4 or 5? Why can't he draw 9 and never touch his capital?
Cam, that's a great question, and we get that one often. There are 3 answers, and they actually stack up. The first is inflation. If Trevor draws the full 9% this year, he's taken every cent of growth. So the capital ends the year exactly where it started. 2 million rand, but 2 million rand next year buys about 5 to 6% less than it did this year, assuming the average long-term inflation in South Africa sits between 5 to 6%. So next year, he needs more rands to live the same life, drawn from a pot that hasn't grown at all. Do that for a decade, and his income has lost roughly a third of its buying power, while the balance on his statements has never moved. He didn't run out of money. He ran out of what the money could actually do. Take the price of a loaf of bread 10 years ago. It was approximately 11 rand. That same bread today will cost you roughly 23 rand, depending on the brand and the retailer.
So the gap between the 9 and the 4 or 5 is essentially the inflation you have to leave behind for your future self.
Exactly that. 9% growth, 5% inflation, the real return is about 4%. That's what actually is available to spend forever. Everything above it has to stay in the pot, just to keep the income keeping up with what things cost at the shops.
And the second reason?
9% is an assumption and an average, and nobody ever gets the average. You might get plus 20 in one year, then minus 8 in the next. The thing is, markets are volatile and they go through different up and down cycles. The average over 20 years might be well above 9, but you're drawing income every single month of that ride, including the bad years.
Which brings us to the third one, and this is the one that actually destroys retirement.
And this is something we call sequence of returns risk. If markets fall, for instance, 30% in Trevor's second year of retirement, and he's still withdrawing income, he's selling units at the bottom to fund his groceries. Those units are gone. They aren't there to recover when the markets come back.
And that's the part that isn't intuitive. 2 people can earn identical 9% average over the 20 years and end up in completely different places, purely because of the order that the good or bad years arrived in.
Correct. If your bad years land early while you're drawing income, no amount of good years later can undo it. The 4 to 5% isn't pessimism about returns. It's the buffer that lets you survive a bad start.
So the short version, 9% is what the portfolio might earn. 4 to 5% is what you can safely spend. And that's after inflation takes its share and you've left yourself room to survive a bad decade at the wrong moment.
So let's start with the 1.6 million rand Trevor has in his retirement annuity, because Trevor has a decision to make there that he only gets to make once. At retirement, you may take up to 1/3 as cash. A third of 1.6 million is 533,000 rand. And according to the 2027 retirement lump sum tax tables, his first 550,000 of lifetime retirement lump sums is tax-free, so he could bank that entire amount without paying tax.
Which, after what he's been through, I understand completely. Cash in the bank isn't greed. It's a nervous system asking for safety.
It is, but that lump sum withdrawal still needs to provide him with an additional income in retirement. This is not money that is now available for him to spend. Unfortunately, this is something I have seen numerous times with clients, where they take their retirement lump sum and spend it on a new car, a holiday, rather than using it as tax-efficient retirement income. That brings us to the remaining 2/3 that now must buy him an income for life. And here he can choose between 2 products.
The living annuity, where he keeps control, he carries the market risk, whatever's left goes to his beneficiaries. Or a guaranteed life annuity, where he hands the capital to an insurer and they pay him for life, however long he lives.
And Trevor's circumstances points unusually clearly to one of the scenarios, because the standard objection to a life annuity is, I lose the capital because I give it to the insurer and my spouse gets nothing. But Trevor has no spouse. But Trevor also mentioned that if something happened to him, he would like to leave some funds for his daughter to inherit. So the big decision for Trevor is, do I guarantee an income for life, or do I take the risk of a living annuity knowing that if I pass away early, at least my daughter will inherit some funds?
And that is a tough decision that a lot of retirees need to make. And the reality is that there's no right or wrong answer. It just truly depends on every individual's unique scenario.
Let's say Trevor opted for a living annuity. Then we need to look at what is his income tax situation at retirement. So here's how his money is arranged. He takes the $533,000 as a tax-free lump sum and invests it alongside his existing R200,000 investment plan. That gives him R733,000 of discretionary money. The remaining $1,067,000 goes into the living annuity, and the $200,000 fixed deposit stays where it is.
Now there's 3 sources of income, and they're each taxed completely differently.
Which is the whole point. Let's take them one at a time. First, the living annuity. 5% on $1,067,000 is R53,350 a year. That is fully taxable as income. No exemptions, no deductions. It goes straight onto his tax return.
Second, the fixed deposit.
R200,000 at around 8% earns him R16,000 of interest. But at 65, Trevor has a local interest exemption of R34,500. So the entire R16,000 is tax-free, and he still has R18,500 of exemptions unused.
And the third, the discretionary investments.
This is the one people misunderstand most. When Trevor draws from his discretionary money that is mostly invested in growth assets, he isn't earning income. He's selling units. Only the growth portion is a capital gain. He has an annual capital gains exclusion of R50,000, and only 40% of anything above this is included in his taxable income.
So on a withdrawal of what? $36,000 a year.
5% on $733,000 is R36,650 a year, of which only a portion is actually growth. His gain is nowhere near the R50,000 exclusion, so the capital gains tax is effectively null.
So let's total it up. So from a living annuity, drawing 5%, you'd get about R53,350, which is fully taxable. And then there's the fixed deposit interest of $16,000. That's exempt because it's under $34,500. And then the discretionary withdrawal, 5% on $733,000, which is about $36,000. No capital gains because it's under $50,000, thus bringing his total income to R106,000. So Trevor has about R8,300 a month, and he says he needs 30. There are 3 roads out of that.
Road 1. He draws everything he possibly can. 17.5% from the living annuity, the maximum the law allows him to do, and covers the rest from the fixed deposit and his discretionary money.
And on our calculations,
well, his accessible capital is gone within 5 to 7 years, and the annuity is shrinking the whole time. Drawing 17.5 while earning 9 means the capital falls at about 8.5% a year, so the income falls with it, automatically every single year.
That means he might find himself at the age of 72, where there's no buffer, and there's no lever left to pull. It feels fine for 5 years, and then it's unrecoverable.
Row 2, he drops his income down to what his capital can sustainably produce. That will be around 8,300 mark.
Which is mathematically correct, and Trevor has told us plainly it isn't possible. Medical aid alone takes a large bite of that before he's bought a single grocery.
For some people, row 2 can genuinely work. For Trevor, it doesn't stretch.
Which leaves row 3, and this is the one we'd put to him.
He keeps working another 5 to 7 years, but works deliberately. maximizing his contributions to his retirement annuity, maxing out his tax-free savings account every single year, with a real target, growing his capital to between, let's say, 5 to 7 million rand. Don't ask, is 2 million rand enough? Ask what your income costs in capital. If you use the traditional 4% rule as a rule of thumb, then divide the annual amount you require by 4% to get an approximate number of capital you require.
And two last things. Protect the medical aid, because medical inflation outruns every other line in his budget. And check the beneficiary nomination on that living annuity, because if his late wife is still named on it, his daughter loses the one real advantage the product gives her. So the question is, can Trevor retire on 2 million rand, drawing 30,000 rand a month?
Well, the answer is no, and nobody should be telling him otherwise. But that's not the end of his story. Structured properly, his 2 million produces about 8,300 rand a month. That's his floor. And part-time consulting, doing what he's done for about 24 years, keep contributing hard for another 5 to 7 years, and he gets to a genuine retirement. Might not be the number he was looking for, but at least it's a number that he can actually survive on.
It's not just this year, and there's a real difference between no and not yet. Now here's 4 things we want to leave with you. First, your capital is not your income, your drawdown rate is. 4 to 5% at 65, not 17.5. Work out what your income actually costs. A good guideline would be to divide your annual income by 4%. That's a good starting point. Third, a tax-free lump sum isn't spending money. It still has to produce income for the rest of your life. And lastly, your skills are an asset your statement doesn't show. Closing a business isn't the same as leaving an industry.
If you're finding yourself in a similar situation than Trevor, and you've been avoiding these numbers because you're frightened of the answer, please run them anyway. Because finding out at 65 that you're short is a solvable problem. Finding out at 78 is not.
And if life threw you a curveball rather than you making the mistake, that's worth saying out loud. It doesn't change the math, but it does let you stop spending energy on guilt and start spending it on the levers you've still got.
If this was useful, please do us a favor, subscribe to the channel. We publish this kind of breakdown every week, South African focused retirement content. And please remember, this video was for educational purpose. None of the examples were based on your unique situation. Speak to a certified financial planner before making any big decisions. Thanks for watching. I'm Hardi Swart.
I'm Cam Sondlo.
This is Family Wealth. Keep investing into your future.